Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we talk about all things automotive. Front of the store, back of the store, the office, doesn't really matter. Because the better we all get at what we do, the better the customer experience. And yes, it has been, and always will be about the customer experience, despite the fact that we recycle it in our business. And every once in a while, we dust it off and we say, oh, we really need to focus on the customer experience now. That's never changed and it never will. So every week, I bring on the experts to share with us what they do to make our business better. And, I'm blessed and fortunate to have made some great connections, built a beautiful network. And this week, we welcome Jonathan Lucenay. Did I pronounce that right, Jonathan?
You got it, Paul.
Awesome. With Client Command. So how do you take command of your marketing? We're going to find out. So Jonathan, welcome to the show. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to this point?
Well, I'm glad to be here, Paul. Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to spending the next hour with you. The way I got to Client Command is I worked in retail, and some of you guys might understand the story. Proposed to my wife. She says, yes, and will you get out of retail? I didn't know if there was a problem. She explained to me that I work 100 hours a week, so I can do that in any profession. But she asked me to get out, and I said, absolutely. But I'm still going to work with dealers, and went to the vendor side of the house. A couple of years later, started Client Command, and that was 23 years ago, actually, coming up next month.
You know, what's interesting about our business is that nobody ever gets out alive. We get in, we get
true.
sucked in, and we enjoy it. And it seems like, maybe 5-6 years in, we're sitting there one day and we're scratching our heads and we're like, wow, this is an incredible business. And it's not one that anybody leaves. I talk to old timers, they start laughing and they get a twinkle in their eye when I ask them about if they ever tried to get out, and they tell me how they got out for a couple of years, but then they got sucked back in. So yeah, it's been a great business. I love it. I hope to die in it of natural causes one day. And even though I'm 43 years in, every morning I get up and I'm as excited as the first day I got in it. I just couldn't think of doing anything different. Now, we've got a couple of people that chimed in so far. We have Ed Chipolowski. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Ed. And it's funny, LinkedIn, there's some kind of glitch. Guy comes in as a LinkedIn user, my friend Lamont. And he says, good evening, gentlemen. LinkedIn user, Lamont, hashtag SDL. Are you familiar with SDL, Jonathan?
Sunday Night Live.
Well, no, that's SNL.
Oh, that's SNL. What is SDL?
Service Drive Live. We get together every Sunday morning, 8 o'clock Eastern, for an automotive fixed ops call. We generally have about 30 people or so that tune in, and we exchange ideas about what's happening in the stores and how different people deal with it. Because when there's a problem, it always seems insurmountable to us. However, somebody else that may look at the same problem and says, oh, that's no big deal. I've encountered that, and this is how we do it. So we exchange ideas every morning or every Sunday morning. So it's really quite a valuable show we do.
So this network in action right there.
Oh, it's wonderful. I've met some great people through LinkedIn who I then met in person at different live events. I can't say enough good things about it. I practically live on LinkedIn, and it's taken my wife a while to get used to the notion that I'm always in the phone and that I'm actually working. Because you do so much work on the phone these days. So an important thing is coming down the pike. I believe it's December 9th of this year. And folks out there may be familiar with the initials GLBA. And you guys are leaders in the marketing space. why don't you share with us a little bit about you know, your feeling on this and some of the best practices that dealers are going to have to adopt?
Yeah, so GLBA, for those that aren't familiar, is the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, and it governs financial institutions. And in many aspects, the one that seems to be most concerning right now is how they handle consumer data. Now, technically, dealers have been financial institutions for years. The FTC came out recently and said they will begin enforcing GLBA as it relates to car dealers on December 9th. And why that matters is every infraction is a $46,000 fine. Those add up fast, and nobody wants to be stroking those kind of checks. So it's got dealers' attention, and rightly so. It is not overly complicated to comply with GLBA. It's pretty clear what the law says. The FTC has a great side on it. The difficult part of it is, at the core, you have to know what every vendor you send data to, everybody that has your data, you have to know exactly what they do with your data, and they have to be compliant. And that includes giving consumers opt-out opportunities in terms of how you use their data. So if you've got data from 10 years ago and maybe you didn't do an opt-out at that point, you have to take action on that before you can market to that consumer.
Now, we all know, or probably most of us in the dealer world, when we think about safeguarding customer data, we singularly focus on the deal jacket that's left out, right? The deal jacket that, you know, maybe the stack of them that's at the cashier, or the person that answers the phone. When that person walks away, that data is open and available to anybody. What we don't realize are all of the additional steps that we need to take. Now, there are a number of states. I live in Connecticut. Connecticut's one of them, California, and I forget some of the other ones that have already stepped up their safeguards. So for those few states, it maybe isn't going to be as traumatic, but for most of the other ones, it is, because it's not just a question of the deal jackets that are left out on the counter or in the F&I office unlocked. What about the salesperson's copy of the purchase order that has all of the data on there? You know, that's going to have to be safeguarded. There are multiple steps that need to be taken. For one, the dealership will now have to designate one person who will, or more, who will implement and supervise the dealership security program. Now, Jonathan, in your experience, how many stores out there are doing that?
There's quite a few stores that will name someone. The next step is they actually have to have a plan for how they are going to comply. And then the next step is they have to enforce it and audit it. And so the first step, if they check that box, that's not that hard to do, is say, Jimmy, you're in charge of this.
Right.
But what Jimmy does after that can be very, very costly. And Paul, I would point out that it's not just the consumer data that floats around the dealership. And some dealers actually do a decent job of safeguarding information in their dealership. And the issue becomes, okay, who has access to your data?
All the digital.
Well, it's, yes, in store and out of store. So think about in the store, there's a practice called data minimization that's really important for protecting yourself. And what that means is every individual only gets the data they need to do their job. So if Sally can log in and she really only needs the customer's name and VIN number, then that's all she should get. A lot of stores aren't doing that. Permissions are granted pretty freely in DMS systems these days, as well as CRM systems. And let's say you actually send data to a mail house, or you send data to a call center. There's 1,000 reasons we might send data as a dealer to a vendor.
Yeah.
Do we practice data minimization? Does that vendor encrypt the data? Do they securely protect the data? Do they abide by the Safeguards Act? Are they a risk for for actually being a violation to GLBA.
So now we have to do audits to make sure we know where all the data is. We need to make sure that it's all minimum 128-bit encryption. And this isn't something that most people have done, although some of the DMS companies have done it, much to the chagrin of dealers, is where they require the third-party vendors that access the data to pass stringent, get certified. Everybody thinks it's just to whack them for money, but it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
In their certification program, they want to make sure that the vendor that's extracting data in and out of the dealer's DMS actually has the proper safeguards in place. So now, as part of this new ruling, or what's coming down the pike on the 9th of December, now we as dealerships need to make sure, we need to audit the vendors, and we need to review what their policies are in writing, how they deal with it, who's in charge, and we need to be able to audit that on a regular basis without anybody saying, whoa, this is my business. No. This is serious business, and it could cost the dealership a lot of money. I just want to get to a couple of comments. Eric from SDL says, good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, Eric. Hey, it seems like we were just on the phone a few hours ago. Jerry Davis, good evening, everyone. Another great show in store. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate you, man. Mark Williamson, kaboom, in the house. And Steve DeMarzio, have any dealers been hacked? I would say yes. Ed Chipolowski, with the metaverse coming, will this be a positive or negative factor in data security? That opens up a whole nother, the metaverse opens up a whole nother risk avenue.
Depends which direction it goes in terms of the metaverse. If you actually put consumer data and store it in the metaverse, there are going to be issues with who can access it, for sure.
Well, I think that the whole goal, because we know there's some dealers that have started now doing full transactions from A to Z in the metaverse, that data is there. So, I don't think it's going to be as fast as some people think it is, but it's yet another area of risk.
Yeah, I want to bring up another area of risk, Paul. So if you have Amy Szymanski and she gets married and she becomes Amy Smith, and she then gets married again and she becomes Amy Ward, now you've got 3 different people. How many times is each consumer in your database? 5, 10? I mean, she may be A Szymanski, A Smith, A Ward, and so on and so forth. What happens if Amy Ward opts out? Do you have the capability, and do your vendors have the capability to actually go back and remove all marketing, obey the consumer's preference for Amy Ward and Amy Szymanski? If you can't do that, you end up in a situation where you're non-compliant really, really quickly. And the key to doing it's not complicated in terms of an idea. It's complicated in terms of execution, and that's just have a unified customer profile that all of Amy's data goes back to that unified customer profile.
Wait a minute. Are you insinuating that a dealership would have multiple name records in their DMS system?
I've been in one once or twice, and yeah, I'm insinuating that.
I didn't even think about that, but you make a really strong point there, because if it's now more stringent, then that data cleanse that many dealers have put off, that should be a regular part of house cleaning.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just the data cleanse. You have to work with people that actually have unified customer profiles. It becomes a big issue if you're just marketing out of your DMS and your DMS has multiple records. Even if you go back and cleanse them, I've done data cleanses in dealerships before, and you still end up with 2, 3, 5 records for the consumer. And it's for lots of reasons. Maybe the service advisor types in 9s for the phone number and puts do not email at gmail.com as the email address every single time. Well, how do you write that record? some vendors can do it, other vendors can't. DMSs tend to, there's 1,000 iterations of that, and you end up with multiple consumers. So super important that you're really disciplined with how you pick your vendors as it relates to GLBA.
And the on the dealer end too, some of it is technology related, but some of it's human related too. I found recently that just the other day, I got a marketing piece to trade up my car. So your payment is X. You have this much time left on your loan. Well, actually, no. I paid off the car some time ago, so I don't have any balance on it. I have the title. And furthermore, I had told the dealer on probably 3 different occasions that I just had an accident with the car, a little fender bender called a total loss. So I don't own the car anymore. Yet no one went into the record and removed that particular car. So the marketing pieces are still going out. And I get mail pieces from other dealerships for Chevy trucks. Now, I'm never going to buy a Chevy truck. I have nothing against Chevy. I had a rental car for 3 weeks that was a Chevy, wonderful car. But I'm never going to buy a Chevy truck. Where I'm going with this is that I serviced my previous Lexus at this particular dealership. They also sell Chevys. And for some reason, they send me marketing pieces for Chevy trucks, which I'm never going to buy. So, dealers spend a lot of money on marketing, but don't necessarily send the right marketing piece. And you guys are pretty tight on the data piece of it. Tell me a little bit about how you guys,
Yeah. So Paul, we stuck our stake in the ground on personally identifiable data 20 years ago. And other companies began to pursue anonymous marketing as that became highly profitable. And we stayed with what's called PII, personally identifiable information. And by doing that, we've been able to really hone in on the data piece. So we've got a file on every American. We've got online and offline data. We get online data from 60 billion URLs every day. We upload our offline data 97 million times a day, or refresh it. So there's quite a bit in the file. And what we specialize in is identifying a consumer that's shopping for a vehicle or looking for service, knowing what they're looking for, why they want to buy it, and when they want to buy it. And then focusing the marketing that we do to those individuals, whether they be customers that have never visited the dealership, or many dealers have us also apply that to their DMS so they know when they've got retention risk in sales or service. And that's been extremely effective in creating efficiency in marketing, limiting dealer spend so that dealers are able to save money, but then also drive effectiveness, which is the goal, right?
Yeah, no, and vehicle acquisition, that's a big thing right now. On the new end, the car that I ordered, I'll be in it in October, right? It's the end of August right now. So just about every new car is already sold. Used cars, those are tough to come by, and they're commanding some serious dollars, because when the insurance company, by the time we finished negotiating the settlement, I basically got back from the insurance company what I paid for the car almost 5 years and 78,000 miles ago. So, once we settled on the number, 3 days later, they wired it into my account. So vehicle acquisition is critical. And look, I've been in this business a long time. I've worked in a few stores, and a lot of what I've seen them do is a spray and pray approach, where it's not really targeted. And I remember, I don't think it was this past digital dealer. It might have been the one before. I forget the guy's name. Chris, maybe, big stocky guy. He did a demo. He showed me.
Yeah, Chris Martin.
Yeah, that was incredible. I mean, how you zero in on finding customers whether it's for sales or service.
Yeah, so it's funny talking about vehicle acquisition. We learned some things that were sort of a surprise to us. We pointed our tech at vehicle acquisition, so that's who's actually looking for an opportunity to sell their car. What was the first thing you did when you started talking to the insurance company about the value of your car? Did you look it up online?
Oh, I looked up, I did all my homework. So I looked up, this was an interesting story. So I looked up the values NADA, I looked and to see what was selling currently in my zip code. And the offer they came in with was low. So I said, yeah, well, we use this particular company. I'm not going to mention their name. So I said, yeah, I'm not happy with your number. So I do a little bit of research on that company. Well, it turns out that company, they came into existence with the express purpose of lowering insurance companies' payouts. Now, most people, the company tells them, oh, we're going to pay you X amount for your car. They just kind of roll over, like tip you the dummy and say, all right, thank you. No. So they were about $2,000 light on where I felt the value should be. And that's not me. That's other people selling cars like mine, plus NADA, not this company who was involved in multiple class action suits. So I brought up to them and said, first of all, you're a little off on your equipment for my car. And I'm not too happy with this company that's being sued here and there in class action suits for the same reason I'm complaining about the value. So they saw the light in coming up with a different value after reevaluating it a couple of times. And I got what was due. But yeah, so I looked it up online.
Yes, and you did the work, and most consumers do look it up online. And when our tech sees somebody looking for the value of their car, then we turn, if a dealer's got a vehicle acquisition program on, we actually turn the marketing to one-to-one messaging with that consumer to buy that vehicle. And if you get to them fast enough, and this is the key to being real time with your data, if you get to them fast enough, you've gotten to them before they've had the opportunity to shop 10 different dealerships for their trade-in value
or
20. And you can actually make more money, buy the car for less. And what surprised us is those consumers oftentimes will turn around and buy a car, a used car on the dealer's lot, increasing the velocity of turns at the dealership. So it's actually driven a lot of trades.
Yeah, and it's timing. We say that there's no loyalty anymore in today's internet world, but there is a weird loyalty, and that loyalty is time. I can't tell you how many times I'd wake up. I ran internet departments, and I was blessed with good sleep. My phone would ding. I would wake up. I would see the lead. I would respond to the lead whenever it was. Could be 2 a.m. Could be 4 a.m. Didn't matter. I had templates in my phone, a couple of personal identifiable things I put in, and I responded. I'd get a message back. Holy moly, you guys are open? It's the internet, man. We're always open. I'd make the appointment right then and there. I put the phone back down and go to sleep, count back from 3, by 2, I was out again. So it's time. If you can get to them quickly, they will be strangely loyal, because when the other people wake up and respond to them, whether it's several hours or days later, and you know what they'll tell them, Jonathan? I'm all set. I've got an appointment with Paul at 11 o'clock tomorrow, because you reached out to them first. They're used to people not responding.
Nobody actually wants to do that work for themselves. They want you, the dealer, to do it. And if we can do that for them, man, they are fired up about it.
Got a couple of comments. Rachel Swanson says, great topic. Thank you. And Greg Dudley, hello all. He said, sounds great as a tool to go after market share growth. No joke. He says, how much for a list to drop into a dialer? Greg, I think it's a whole lot more involved than just a list to drop into a dialer. I don't know.
Yeah, we can. Can you private chat me on here and just send me his contact info, and I'll call him tomorrow, and we can
absolutely
catch up. Yeah,
absolutely. Yep. Yeah.
That might be the easiest way.
Because
an idea of all the things.
Right, depending on specifically what he's looking for. So, Greg, I'll make sure to connect you and Jonathan tomorrow. And then also service acquisition, right? I mean, that's another tough thing. It seems as though customers don't believe we're in the repair business. If you look at the data, for instance, Cox Automotive did a study a few years ago, and they found that 7 in 10 customers don't come back to us for service. That's a huge number. And you guys also handle service conquest, right?
We do. We actually target a few unique customer segments in the market. One, we go after people that have never done business at the dealership. We also go after lost customers that we can tell you they're at Jiffy Lube. We know they're at Jiffy Lube. We can show you when they were at Jiffy Lube and how many times they went to Jiffy Lube or Pep Boys or whatever the competitor's service store is. So our ability to re-engage customers or to land new customers is really where we focus most of our service marketing.
Now, are you talking about like a lot of dealers, they'll service any brand, but realistically, if I'm a Honda dealer, I don't know if the guy with the Chevy Lumina is going to come to me for service, right?
So he's probably not. That's where the fact that we have 180 million VINs on file. That's our proprietary list. Obviously, the dealer has their own list of people. That's any dealer data is always that dealer's data and nobody else's in our system. But we can leverage it for it. We can apply our tech to say these are the people that are in your dealership or that are from your dealership that are actually at a competitor service center.
So now, if I know my customer, so to speak, who hasn't been in the store in a while, if I know they're at the Pep Boys getting their car serviced or at Jiffy Lube or one of those places, now, if I have this data, now I've got a leg up because I do more than just service cars, right? There's recalls, there's campaigns.
That's right.
I mean, it just gives you another bite at the apple because now you can look at that customer's profile and see, okay, so when was the last time that they were in? Now, when you pull this data, do you pull the mileage and what kind of data do you pull from their visit?
So we don't have mileage on Pure Conquest customers' vehicles. Obviously, if it's integrated through the DMS, we're fully integrated with all the major DMS players. So we would know the last mileage and be able to calculate it based on how much they've driven.
Okay.
What we know is how long since we've seen them buy a car, how many times we've seen them at the service center, at what interval we see them at service centers. So we can, with a pretty high degree of confidence, figure out where the customer is in the life cycle of the vehicle.
Okay. Now I want to play, let's see, Brian sent me a couple of videos. I want to play one of them. Let me just pull that up here. This one is a testimonial from a store called Lakeside Chevrolet. So I'm going to play that here.
My name's Chad Probst. I'm the Vice President of Operations here at Lakeside Chevrolet. Yeah, so I've been in the business about 15 years. I started as a technician, actually in Miami, Florida, working for an Audi Lamborghini store. I worked for a Volkswagen store for a long time, for 13 years, and then moved on to here as Vice President. I think the culture here at Lakeside is a bit different from our competitors, especially direct competitors here in our market. We really pride ourselves on taking care of the customer, following through on, again, what we say we're going to do. Client Command has been a huge part of our transformation here at Lakeside. I think the advantage that Client Command gives us is it allows us to stay connected with our customers. We're here to sell cars, we're here to service cars, we're here to take care of our customers. After the first month of being on the service program with Client Command, we sat down and had our monthly review, and the numbers were pretty staggering. We had roughly 120 extra appointments that month. And our average gross on those repair orders were anywhere from $40 to $60 above what our current average was. Client Command is giving us opportunities every day to welcome new service customers and earn their trust. 97% of the services influenced by Client Command are brand new customers and are 8.5 times more often customer pay than warranty. I think most importantly, Client Command's been able to reach that customer early on in the process of buying a car, and they've been able to stay with it until that customer buys a car. So Client Command has really given us advantage when trying to market to our customers.
I think the earlier you can contact them and keep them focused on our store versus multiple other cars out there, it definitely helps. The earlier you can engage them, I think the higher chances you are to sell them a car. Being able to grow the business is important. Doing that efficiently is critical. The partnership with Client Command helps us do both. Client Command influence sales have accounted for 1/3 of our business over the past 18 months. And on those sales, we generated an average of 17% more gross per unit, more than $500 a copy. With a return on investment of 23 to 1, we have a partnership that works. Andy Duran, General Manager, Lakeside Chevrolet.
Chad Probst, Vice President of Operations, Lakeside Chevrolet. This technology is not technology that you're going to get through a third-party site. This is technology that allows you to reach customers in a way that you wouldn't be able to reach them before.
That's a hell of a testimonial, man.
Yeah. Paul, when dealers get on the program at Client Command and start using our data, it generates those type of testimonials pretty consistently. They said something about our tech, and can we rewind for just 2 seconds and talk about that?
Yeah.
What makes the tech so powerful is the patent that we hold. The patent that allows us to connect online and offline data and then use that to deploy messaging at scale. So it's not just who a person is. Maybe dealers are familiar with, we can tell when a consumer visits our website through the cookie and matching that back and all that. It's way, way, way more than that, because you're actually leaving your website. You're going to 60 billion URLs. Then you're deploying marketing based on what the consumer wants at scale. So that's what's got these guys so fired up, is the efficiency and effectiveness that comes from that. And they're able to get that while they're being safe and compliant, which is obviously super important today.
So now when you go into a store, you sit down with the appropriate personnel and you craft out their kind of what their mission is, what they're looking for, and then you set up the parameters, the nets, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's a general estimation of how that works. We actually analyze all their data and create what we call an IntelliProfile that says these are the type of consumers that would buy from you. And then we know exactly what they want to sell, because A, we have their inventory, and B, they tell us what they have on allocation, what they want to focus on, whether it be new or used, and what types of vehicles. And then we just point the tech at that and get out of the way and let it do what it does.
And then how strong is the attribution?
I'm glad you asked. That's one of our favorite things. At the end of the day, because we stuck our stake in personally identifiable information, we really are able to double down on attribution, stating every time the consumer was engaged with Client Command or saw a Client Command ad. That's always on behalf of the dealer, never on behalf of Client Command. But we can show that attribution as full attribution. And I say that while I want to also say we do recognize that there is no such thing as single source attribution. Whether it be first touch, last touch, we really need to look at what happened in the entire life cycle of the customer. And every vendor should be able to tell you, if they're talking about a consumer by name, when they touched that consumer and what ads they showed them.
I mean, that's as they say in the restaurant world, that's stronger than garlic.
It works.
You
Got to
know,
be able to back up what you say, right?
well, in not all marketing in the restaurant industry, for instance, there's not always attribution, to that level, right? You can do marketing for a restaurant, and we don't necessarily know, is it the third or the 15th time that they've seen one of your marketing pieces? Is that what drove them in? And I'll give you a perfect example. I had one particular client, a restaurant that I did marketing for. And the lady said, I'm not, I don't think the marketing's working. Oh, okay, that's funny, because I created a video for the store that had some 33,000 views, and people in the area would come up to me and thank me for recommending that particular business. So clearly it was working, but there wasn't always a way to tie the one piece to the other. Whereas with the automotive piece of it, it seems you guys have stitched up every loose end.
Again, the benefit of being focused on the consumer at the PII level for 20 plus years is that we've been able to invest in that while other people were chasing the fad. And yes, we've stitched up every loose end that we can find. And we've had the hard conversations with dealers. Is this working? How do I know it's working? Is this the best way to spend my money? And we've gone down the list, and we've made sure that we can be as transparent as possible so that they can see literally everything we do. Because my belief is that if we tell them everything we do, we show them everything we do, 99 times out of 100, they're going to choose to continue doing business with us.
And I bet you there probably have been times where the dealer has one particular idea that conflicts with what works, that might be a different way of looking at it. And that's got to be an interesting conversation too.
It's all about the data. It's does the data support the idea that having your kitten on your marketing is a good idea? If it does, then you get out of the way and put the cat on the marketing.
Greg Dudley says working smarter, not harder.
That's the idea, Greg.
Yeah, 100%. It's like when people work the CRM. It's not about how many messages you've left. It's how many actual conversations you've had, and what comes from that conversation. Now, so conquest is one area, whether it's sales or service. What about management of the existing database? What are some of the things that you guys do or do differently than some of the other players?
So we were a customer data platform before customer data platforms were even a term. And if you haven't heard of customer data platforms, you will in the next year, because it's going to be a buzzword, thanks in large part to GLBA and the realization that, oh wait, if we actually invest in PII, that matters. And so what we do with the customer's database, the dealer's database, is we put it in our software, which is a customer data platform, or CDP, which creates a unified customer profile that includes all the data the dealer has on the consumer. And then we append to that all the data we have on the consumer. So over 800 demographic fields, and then all the online behavior that is automotive related. We append that to the consumer file so that at that point we can use it in targeting to identify who do we want to target, or who do we want to alert the dealer is looking for a vehicle. So many of our dealers will actually use our tech to identify when they're going to lose a customer, and they'll have people log into our portal, or they'll have us push it directly into their CRM. We do both of those. And it says, Jim Smith is looking for a car right now. Well, Jim started looking for a car today. And the fact that that dealer knows that, now he can reach out and have that serendipitous conversation with Jim, asking if there's anything he can do to help him with his automotive needs, or he can have us do it. He can have our BDC call and engage Jim. So what it does, it creates a lot of efficiency and effectiveness.
So if you're deployed in my store, you're not only reaching out proactively on the web for people searching for what I service or what I sell, but you're also looking at the existing database in real time, and you're monitoring where those people may be at a point of defection.
Correct. So, Paul, I have a daughter that just turned 16. What do you think I just did? I just bought a car for a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And I didn't want her driving mine. And so by buying that car, when I started shopping for the car, would be the time to talk to me.
Right.
Now, if I wasn't in the car business and didn't know 1,000 dealers, that would have been the time you wanted to reach out to me, start feeding me content. And guess what? My dominant buying motive was safety. I didn't care how fast it went. I didn't care what the fuel economy was. I didn't care how it looked. All I cared about was how safe it was, because I'm putting my 16-year-old daughter in that car. And and so the dealers that know that can actually market in the appropriate way to the consumer. I could be in somebody's database, and if they didn't have a robust customer data platform like Client Command, they would never know that A, I was shopping, and B, I was shopping for a 16-year-old kid, not myself. So the car I bought looks nothing like the car that I would buy for myself. Right?
Yeah, no, I hear you on that one. And look, let's face it, people hate the buying process. It's a fact. Okay, it's a fact. And they want to be guided through the process by a professional that understands them, understands the value of a customer, a long-term customer. You know, a lot of what I see today is we forget about the big picture. We think about today, okay? And we think about that $4,000 or $5,000 gross profit or more that we can get today, because we can. But I'm going to ask you a question. You're a dealer. What's more valuable to you? A customer that has bought 6 cars in the span of 10 years within their family and referred countless people to you that have also purchased from your dealership and service with you, is that more or less valuable than the opportunity for a one-time $5,000 gross profit? What makes more sense in the big picture?
Yeah, I mean, lifetime value is obviously a huge thing, Paul. And I've got a deep concern that many dealers are going to experience some massive customer attrition in the next season. Yeah, you got it too. And the reason I think is it's multifaceted. So one, consumers have become accustomed to, okay, the dealer that's their preference that they've been going to did not have inventory. So now I've got to go find the car somewhere else. So we just preconditioned them to buying cars sometimes 500,000 miles away. Car Gurus did their delivery point pilot. And when they announced the results, the average distance between the consumer and the selling dealer was 1,500 miles. Shocking. 1,500 miles.
Holy shit.
So that's a game changer, right? And then on top of that, no matter how much a dealer has coached the sales staff, some salespeople are treating customers like they're the commodity. Because, hey, I know there's another one coming. If you're wasting my time, get out of here. Let's go. And if you're not going to pay me $8,000 gross, $10,000 gross, get out of here. Well, that guy may have bought 7 cars from me or more. Yeah. So I think that there are going to be some dealers that have a really tough time with that. There's a way to get ahead of that. And that is just to start contacting the consumer as soon as they start shopping, make them feel valuable, get them what they need, and they'll come back.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a huge problem because, look, customers have long memories. right? You expect, look, since the pandemic, our expectation as consumers has gone way beyond what's reasonable. I'll be honest, it's gone beyond what's reasonable. So at
Yeah.
the very least, if you're my customer, I've got to make you feel like you matter.
That's right.
Right? More than the other dealership that you've never done business with. If that other dealership that you've never done business with rolls out the red carpet for you, you're in trouble. I'm in trouble as a dealer.
I agree. I think it's a twofold opportunity, though. One, it's an opportunity to recapture the people that maybe we've offended or feel less loyal to our dealership. The second opportunity is if a consumer 1,500 miles away will buy a car, our PMA just got huge.
Yeah.
Our opportunity to sell the cars on our lot is massive.
Yeah.
The issue is we can't afford to market over a 1,500 mile area. What we need is we need some efficiency and some targeting that allows us to know who's shopping.
Got a couple of comments. Brian Davis, that data include public used retailers?
I think he might be talking about the Car Gurus piece. Brian, if you can confirm that, exactly what your question's about, we'll answer it.
And Greg Dudley says, concierge service is paramount on a $100,000 SUV.
Amen to that.
Yeah, and customers really don't have a problem buying a car from somebody else because the way they've kind of seen it, the service and sales are two different businesses within the same, and they seem disjointed so often that the customer doesn't really care where they buy it if they can get the car and or the deal that they want because they know the service department's going to welcome their business. Let's see. Steve DiMarzio says, as a consumer, I find this conversation fascinating. As a consumer, you know what? As a dealer, I would find the conversation fascinating also, because we're going to go at some point, and nobody knows for sure. It could be a year, could be two, maybe more. We're going to go back to pre-pandemic, and the two complaints I heard from dealers was A, inventory carrying costs are choking us, and B, there's not enough people coming through the door.
That's right. And Steve's comment actually took me all the way back to the beginning of our conversation about data security and privacy. Dealers probably want to lead with our mentality at Client Command is privacy first, and it's protect the consumer, always do what's best for the consumer. If you do that, it's still possible to make a ton of money. It's still possible to turn your inventory really fast. It's just protecting them, and it's going to ultimately protect the dealership and increase the loyalty of the consumer to the dealership. So I think it's interesting we've got a consumer on here saying that. I
saw a meme on LinkedIn recently where this guy posted a picture. I forget what the dollar amount was, but they said that a dealership will spend tens of thousands of dollars to market to new customers, but they won't spend $1,500 to keep engaged with their own customer database, which is more valuable than any customer you could possibly get. Brian Davis says, from Gurus.
Oh, the car Gurus, it was just their delivery point pilot. So that delivery point was not through the used car retailers.
Okay.
I
Brian,
don't believe that they participated in that.
Sorry, was the Car Gurus data including transactions they were involved in with Carvana, CarMax, etc.?
They did not call it out. I don't believe that those companies participated in the delivery point pilot, but they didn't call it out. So I can't be certain without actually going to Gurus. It was all the dealers that signed up for their delivery point pilot.
That's a hell of a distance. I thought driving an hour or two was a lot.
I thought it's crazy.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, so to the, Brian says, okay, thank you. All right, to the attribution piece, I have another video that Brian sent me. I'm going to play this now.
You know, as a managing partner, I get calls all the time from vendors in the industry. And there's two things that you can be guaranteed that anyone is going to talk about today. All right, the first is in-market shoppers, and the second is attributions. So anytime that comes up, I know that somebody read off the buzzword list of things they're supposed to say in a sales pitch. But what I can say with absolute confidence is that Client Command was a pioneer in this particular area, and they have proven through our numbers and what we've seen at this dealership that they do reach the right people.
So Client Command has the ability to match back and attribute our sales to what actually got them in the door. We know what advertising is working, what advertising is reaching the consumer at a critical time, so we can more effectively use our ad dollars in those channels to get more customers in the door to sell more cars.
For me, in the portal, being able to see touch points, knowing kind of how many times has our customer heard from us, how many different ways have we got in touch with our customer, helps exponentially.
Attribution and matchback, I think, is to me, it's the critical question. It was the question in the beginning when we started our relationship with Client Command, and it continues to be. I've asked the tough questions several times. I have a great relationship with Client Command, but I've asked the tough questions and wanting to see that attribution. And in each time, I'm satisfied that that there's an attribution or a match back to our sales that truly is driving business for us.
You've got proven results. You know, I can show you exactly who I marketed to and who bought a car. I can show you what the grosses are on those car deals versus the non-Client Command car deals. I can show you what the return on investment is. I can show you how we marketed to those people. There's no other form of advertising I know out there that you can legitimately do that for every car deal.
Again, stronger than garlic, man.
Just do what you say you're going to do and be transparent about how you do it, and it tends to work out.
Now, regarding the safeguards that are coming up, so you guys are obviously on the forefront of that. What do you suggest most dealers do to get ready for this?
You need to go to the FTC site and read through what's required. If you need to ask some questions, I'll be happy to put our director of compliance on the phone with you and guide you a little bit or put you in touch with. There's multiple vendors. We don't sell the product, but there are multiple vendors that will sell you consulting and actually walk you all the way through to help get compliance. But at a minimum, they need to take action today. It's Sunday night, so maybe Monday morning. Take action on starting to get compliant, because December 9th comes really, really quickly. And you may not be finished with your compliance work by December 9th if you start today, but being on the path is not negligent. On December 9th, having nothing done or having just started the week before would be considered negligent. So that just start.
Nothing happens quickly in our business. I hate to say it, but it just happens to be true. And in our business, in the blink of an eye, it's a year later. Right? When you think about it, you know, it's August 21st, September, October, November, December. It's less than 4 months away. So if you don't have a plan in place right now, that should really move up the priority list, because the amount of money that's at stake is huge. And you know what? I wouldn't put it past anybody to want to make a few examples of stores.
I suspect that will happen. Car dealers were specifically called out in the last couple of months by Congress in relation to GLBA. So it's coming. Someone will be made an example of, for sure.
I mean, when you think about it, I've been in this business for so many years, but I can walk into a store today and I do it, and I see the files left unattended, right? And that was a smaller fine than what they're proposing on December 9th and beyond. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's not that hard to protect them if you're just really disciplined in the process. You know, we recommend a vendor checklist and things of that nature, so that you're making sure the people you do business with take the consumer's privacy as serious as you take the consumer's privacy.
When you look at the history of data breaches at dealerships, I think the common denominator that you'll find is it's usually a third party, vendor that has been breached, that's going in and out of the dealer's DMS.
Yep.
So, when companies like CDK or Reynolds, when they charge a lot of money to make sure that vendor you're using, and I don't work for them, so I'm not, giving them a plug, but the reality is they spend a lot of money and energy on making sure that your assets are protected, pun intended.
Yeah.
So, you might want to look at it a little bit differently when that happens. But based on what's coming, you're going to need to implement your own plan now.
And Paul, it's good that you mentioned the Reynolds program and the CDK program, because those programs ensure that data transmission is encrypted, but unless they change them at current levels, they do not ensure that the vendors are compliant with GLBA.
That's good to know.
They don't ask any questions that would lead one down that path. So just beware. They're great programs, and they definitely protect the dealer. They're protecting for a specific thing, and it's not compliance in other areas. It's data transmission.
It's like a flu shot. It might not work for the other flu.
Correct.
I wonder if they're going to tighten up some of their requirements.
I would expect. I hope they do. It's always good when competitors get knocked out because they're not doing what you're doing. You're spending money on. So, from my standpoint, it'd be great. Protect dealers, protect consumers.
Steve DiMarzio, I think dealerships should advertise the use of Client Command to the customer if they use it. Well, I think we saw some pretty good testimonials there. The testimonials always they have to come out and do it. Roger Gutierrez, another one of my SDL brothers, says, great show. Thank you very much. So I hope that this has opened a couple of eyes as to the severity of what's coming on December 9th. It's nothing to be taken lightly. And I'm going to, actually, Jonathan is tagged in this post. So if you're not connected with him, click the connect button. All starts with a conversation, right? And you're going to post your compliance person. You're going to add that to the thread.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll just, where do you want me to put it?
Right in the comments, not here, but after the show, just put it in the comments. And that way people will be able to reach out. In this business, the more we help each other, as my good buddy Paul Machine says, a rising tide lifts all boats. And that's what we do every week here. And we bring on people to help you in your store with actionable content you can use today. not some filler content to make you feel good. This is real stuff that you can use. And Brian Davis says, marketing is the most valuable area for GLB. Look at the dozens of third-party scripts on a dealer's website that can see PII being entered. The data gets sold by data brokers. It's theirs. If there's a breach stemming from that, it's on the dealer. 100%. Thank you, Brian. And usually that's where the breach happens.
That's the area that a dealer's most vulnerable. He is absolutely correct. And so making sure that there are no tags on your site that are from vendors you don't use, and making sure the vendors who do have tags on your site are fully compliant with data security, how they use consumer data. It matters.
You need to do that audit yesterday. I can't tell you the number of stores that I've gone into where when you do an audit to see who's going in and out of our DMS, when you think about the turnover, right? People sign up for things. This service manager signed up with a company that he did business with or she did business with at another place. That person's gone. There's been no utilization of the program. Half the time they're paying for stuff, they don't even know who's coming in and out of the database. And that's critical to know. For one, you're spending money on stuff that you may not be utilizing. That's number one. And none of this stuff is cheap. Number two, you need to limit your exposure. And by locking it down, by removing those that shouldn't be in there, and now going to that permission-based where, on a need-to-know basis, if all you need is the name and the phone number, or all you need is the VIN number and the name, whatever the case may be, you lock that down to minimize. If at least you've taken the steps to safeguard your store, I think you'll be looked upon a little bit differently should a problem arise than that store that's done nothing. How do you respond when you get whacked with a violation and they ask you, what have you done? Well, I thought about it. That's not going to cut it. Brian Davis says, thanks for bringing more awareness to the issue. Happy to help in any way that I can. Brian, thank you very much, my friend. Well, you know what? We've gone over by a few minutes, and that seems to be a recurring theme here. There's always so much good information that I try to be respectful to keep the show at an hour because it is a Sunday night, but we always end up going over. And if you guys are like me, you always remember what you forgot to ask when you had the opportunity to do so. The beauty of the internet is that it runs 24/7. If I die, this content is still online. So if you remember something that you forgot, by all means, reach out to me. By all means, reach out to Jonathan. We're happy to further the conversation. Two things is going to come of that. You're either going to find out that, hey, you have this completely covered. Great job. Or, you know what? We hadn't thought about these three things. Can you help us make sure that we're not at risk? So, Jonathan, thank you very much for being on the show. I appreciate you and everything that you shared with us.
I appreciate you, Paul. Thanks for having me. Guys, it was fun chatting. Ping me on LinkedIn. If you need anything, I'll be happy to help you.
And to those in the audience that tune in every week, whether it's live or on the replay, we get a lot of people that watch it on the replay. Thank you very much for your support. If you see value in what we shared here, please share it with your community, because if you help only one friend, you've done a great deed. So thank you again. We'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live.